It looks weird on mine, but we'll give it
Okay,
a go.
sorry.
We'll give it a go. We'll see what happens. It's science,
Yeah,
right? All right.
that's it.
Hello and welcome to Data Driven, the podcast where we explore the emerging field of data science. We bring the best minds in data, software engineering, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. Now here are your hosts, Frank Lavinia and Andy Leonard.
Hello and welcome to Data Driven, the podcast where we explore the emerging fields of data science, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. If you like to think of data as the new oil, then you can consider us like, well, car talk. And with me on this epic road trip down the information superhighway for the first time together in one virtual car, if you will, Andy Leonard and I. How's it going?
Good, Frank. How are you
I'm doing
doing?
all right. It's good to actually sit down in the studio and actually record something. You and I have both
I
been
concur.
very busy, and
We have.
you did an awesome job, by the way, at Pass. Just saying.
Thank you, Frank. It was a great summit. Got to talk to a lot of really interesting people. I didn't record everything, of course, but I think considering Ignite was running the same week, it was a pretty impressive Pass summit.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. For those listeners, based on our traffic, because we do look at our traffic numbers. Not that we live and die by our traffic. We are data scientists after all. We don't look at our own
Yes.
analytics. How can we convince other people to look at their analytics?
Maybe we'll start looking now. How about that?
But I mean, it was wildly successful. Actually, the some of the best traffic we've had in a while. Actually,
True. Very true. And the behind the scenes stuff, we got some feedback online, social media about that. And I was shocked that anybody would want to hear some of that. But we did. We got some really positive comments about, and to be fair, if you want to see the video, and we always do these almost always do data points as video on Facebook Live. And Frank has a bunch of automation built where he pushes like two buttons and it just goes everywhere. It's amazing. So, but you could see the video that accompanies the audio for the data points at our Facebook page. I think it's Data Driven TV or Data Driven Podcast.
unedited. Facebook.com
Okay.
/data driven
Yep.
TV. And it's unedited too. So sometimes there's a comedic value.
You
In,
do get the raw blooper
yes.
filled footage.
And
Yes.
sometimes kids screaming about donuts.
I love that
So
show. That's still my favorite data point.
I often think back to that. It's like, well, somebody was like, well, what do you do with the raw video? I was like, we leave it,
That's hilarious.
because it just shows like another, the inside of the chaos of podcasting and
There you
life,
go.
because a lot of things on social media are so polished. Like you look at Instagram,
We are not
uh,
polished. We are,
right? Well, not even that, but Instagram is the highlight reels,
yeah.
for other people. It's like you don't see kind of like, the truck going by that ruins your audio.
That was what was that? There was something at a school or something you were talking about, and they kept.
Oh, my phone, as soon as I put it do a Facebook Live, is like a truck magnet. So it's happened multiple times.
That was hilarious.
One was in front of a driving school because I was talking about self-driving cars and kind of the unintended consequences of, with the basic thesis. I also did a show about this, right? If you just do a search for Circle K,
Yeah.
is the idea that before the data is the new oil, let's go back and take a look at like, well, what did oil change? Obviously, it changed a lot of things, good, bad,
Sure.
and everything in between. But can you imagine the idea of what a convenience store attached to a gas station? If you told somebody a century ago,
Right.
like that'd be weird.
That.
So now I was kind of thinking about, well, another unintended consequence is if self-driving cars are going to become commonplace in places like driving schools, what's going to happen to them?
True.
So,
It was a great show.
and then
Great show.
yes, thank you. And sure enough, like the it was like must have been a parade of like 18-wheelers with no
No
mufflers.
mufflers.
Uh, they must have got a text saying like Frank's recording
Frank's
here.
recording. Drive by.
It also happened when somebody with a beautiful muscle car, I think it was, when I was in Richmond for Sequel Trails.
Oh, wow.
I recorded something with a colleague of mine, Devin Jaswell.
Uh-huh.
Shout out, Devin, if you're listening. And that's a good show too.
Yeah.
And like the guy had like, decided to floor it. Like, I don't know. Anyway,
I think I won the noise prize.
this is not car talk
I hear
or
that.
truck talk.
Yeah, I think I won the noise prize at Heathrow.
Yes, actually, that was the one that you recorded right at the Heathrow Airport.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I can clean this up, I can clean up anything.
And you did.
Thus far, that has held true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you did it. But what have you been up to, Frank?
So I have been heads down on a number of projects. They changed my role, so I'm more of a cloud solutions architect.
Okay.
Which means I kind of have more of a hands-on role in building out proofs of concept and kind of mentoring and training, which I think is cool.
You
I like
play
that.
all day long, and essentially, that's what you're saying.
I do play all day long. Yes, it is a blessing and a gift to love one's work. That's for sure.
That is so true, and we're both blessed with that.
Sure.
That is awesome that we get to do this.
And it was pretty cool. I saw your live stream with from your talk, or one of your talks.
Yeah.
I don't know if the second one.
We'll have to put
and you got to announce something, right?
I got to announce a new Azure DevOps task, a couple of them. And
Nice.
And it turned out, I didn't realize this. I had totally zoned, and I missed a presentation by one of the members of the SSIS team. Came all the way to Seattle from Shanghai, and I totally missed his presentation. So I was going to announce it on Friday, but I think I heard from people who did attend, who didn't zone, that he shared on Wednesday with it, which is totally fine. They're, building all this stuff. I think they should be allowed to share it. But the short version is, forever and a day, I have wanted to be able to treat SSIS software development, which it is software development. I wanted to treat it like the C# people and the JavaScript people and Node and all of that, where you just check it in and it fires off this automated process that builds, deploys, tests, and all of that. Well, you could do that before in Azure DevOps, and you could do it in other tools as well. But it wasn't as easy as it is today. I'll say it that way. And with the build and deploy task, we can build natively into an Azure pipeline, an SSIS package, or a project, and then we can deploy it. And I kind of cheesed out on the testing, Frank. I used the Azure PowerShell, Azure DevOps task for that. I kind of wrote manual looking tasks, but I really wanted to highlight the build and deploy. So the last demo was I check in some code, it builds it, deploys it to test, executes it, and then it checks the results. Both of these were two separate Azure PowerShells. And if it succeeds, then it fires off a build and deploy to my production folder. And then it does a test execution in the production folder. So it worked perfectly every time I tried it after I got it working until I delivered the talk. And then it blew up on, of all things, there's a checkout step in every Azure pipeline. Mm-hmm. And on the very last one, the execute in production, and that's really all it did. It blew up on the checkout step. And I'm like, I've never seen this fail. Thousands of pipelines I've executed. So I get back home a couple of days later, run it. Of course, it succeeds.
Yeah.
But by then, it had been deployed to tested, deployed to production. That was kind of the point. I was just executing it over there to kind of put the icing, maybe the cherry on the icing on the cake.
Ooh, I like that.
But it was cool. And it's a really neat piece of work. And, it's cool to see this kind of functionality now coming to SSIS. I think it's overdue, but I'm biased.
You certainly are biased, because I think it was the first or second meeting of the Richmond SQL Server user group you presented it, and I
Oh, yeah.
remember you called about it's basically test-driven database development or something like that.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I was working on a book back then. I
yeah,
remember that. Yeah.
and I remember, you know, you and I both started that group, and I remember like looking at the title, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and this was in
This would have been
2006.
2006,
So
and so
yeah, 13 years.
testing was kind of like pretty avant-garde at the time, but testing on a database was like unheard of. It sounded, and I
Mm.
remember like I'll be honest, like for the first 15 minutes, I just thought you were like a little crazy, and then like something clicked in my head, like, yeah,
And you realized Andy is crazy.
No. I just remember you were like, the
Definitely
first
crazy.
test we're going to write is, does the database exist? And I'm like, and then,
Right.
you run the test, doesn't exist. Okay, that fails. And then second one is, does this table exist? Was this like what? And then like, just like testing in general doesn't really click
Yeah.
right away
Yeah.
because it kind of seems redundant, but it's not. It's an insurance policy
Yeah.
against chaos, so to speak.
Yeah. And it's there's a lot to that thinking because a lot of the test tools, I would venture to say maybe most or all of the testing tools that have been built to automate test and deployment and lifecycle management were all built for these very stateless, code sources and things like C# and like I said, JavaScript, Node, a lot of web type stuff, which is obviously stateless.
It's been a
And
developer
here
story, not necessarily a database developer
it
story.
has. Right. And and here we are trying to shove something into this, shoehorn it, and it's databases are the definition of stateful.
Right.
So it's like there's a whole bunch of other stuff you have to do. And then when you think about it in the context of lifecycle management, it comes back around. So let's look at the other side, right? When we do a
Right.
rollback, we find something's not gone like we wanted. So we decide to roll everything back. Well, that's great for JavaScript and Node and C#. But let's say the database change that went along with that added a column. And, so and you think, well, whatever. But here's where it starts to get squirrely. Maybe it's been out there for a day or a week, and that column has data in it. What do we do with that? Do we drop that column and throw that data away? What if it's GDPR relevant or something like that? Then it gets real touchy. So it's complex. I'll give it that. Yeah.
No, I just really like thinking that, and like I mean, you'll like this. I think I told you a story is that I was on actually it's happened sadly on more than one project. There were serious discussions with the leadership on the team that should we check in stored procedure code. Although it probably is not the first time you've heard like, or it's just like, there were two kind of thoughts on this, like, of course, why not? Or like, why would you? Because it's the database and kind of dot, it never goes down. And everybody looked at each other and started laughing. Well, everybody on one side of the table.
So, but that thinking is kind of born in the way we did databases for decades. And, it was considered a system of record, especially the online transaction processing or OLTP database, especially the OLTP database in production. And it was assumed that, there were backups being made, that there was we didn't call it high availability and disaster recovery back in the day, but that's essentially what it was. And then the database and the data in it became the system of record. And that gets tricky when you don't test your restores and you learn that the database backup job has been succeeding maybe for the last 6 months, but it's actually been either corrupt or it hasn't been finishing or some other snafu, and you've got unrestorable backups. So the key here, and I see this logic all the time. Of course, I hang out with data geeks on social media, And the way we think is you don't really have a backup until you've tested the restore. So you've restored it, and then
Right.
you've like done a compare, to see, does it match what you backed up? And of course, in a database that's highly transactional and running a million miles an hour, that's a hard call. But it's possible, and we need to find, we just need to find ways to do that. The last thing you want is that scenario I described earlier where something bad happens and now it's time to restore from a backup, and then you learn, usually at 4 a.m. on a weekend morning, that your backups have not been doing what you thought they were doing all this time. So there's just a lot to lifecycle management, period. I fell in love with test-driven development, Frank. I was doing it in VB6. I'm dating myself, but back before .NET, I was an MCSD and, was slinging code. And I read Kent Beck's book, and he was all about, it was either Java or JavaScript. I forget what his examples were in, but I got it. And
Probably Java. No one took JavaScript seriously prior to like the mid 2000s.
Probably. And this was in the late 1990s.
Yeah.
So, but it really appealed to me as my engineering background. I have a degree in electronics engineering technology, and we test all the time. I mean, you just have to. You don't know that you're finished until you pass a test.
Right.
And so, and back then, the first exposure to it was fail first testing. And I thought, this is awesome because I've been doing this since I started writing code.
Nice.
Always fail.
Nice.
So
I was never a believer. I was a late believer in test driven development, and it came to me when I was working on a project, and not going to name any names, but this was one of the worst projects I've ever been on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. We live and learn. But anyway, for political reasons inside the company, there were active people trying to make the .NET version of the project fail and reboot it with Java, right?
Oh,
So I wrote just, to humor somebody, I wrote a bunch of tests on this one like function and stuff like that, just for fun. And the one guy who was always trying to make the project look bad, he could not break my code. And I wasn't nervous at all because I didn't intentionally write the test like this, but I just thought of any way I could break it and test it on it. And like he could not break it. Like it was just like that totally ruined the code review for him because he was like, and I was able to sit there very confident,
Sure.
In that. So
and
that was the moment I believed in test-driven development.
I'll tell you, Frank, you hit the magic word, confidence. And I mentioned this in my talk, and a lot of people posted about it and pinged me about it. They said that is a very good thing to say because that's really what it's about. At the end of the day, you've written some code, or maybe you've added code to a project already or expanded functionality and features. It's confidence. You want to know that when this code gets deployed, it's going to, first, it's not going to fail. Or if you're doing testing the way you should be doing, you should also be testing failures. You should be injecting them so that when it fails, you know how it fails. And you compensate for that. It's graceful failure.
Yes.
Yeah. And, but that's it. At the end of the day, and what happens is over time, something will get through the cracks. It's going to happen. I'm not telling you it could. It's going to. And when some bad code gets into production, you're going to have something that fails. Well, you deal with that. Put that fire out, get it going, maybe do a rollback if you need to. But what you've got there is some data that now you can write another test around. And that becomes a part of your regression test suite. And you just keep adding to that over time. And your confidence should, over time, grow. And, it's all set-based theories and rainbows after that, It's
Exactly. Speaking of failure and glitches, our podcasting hoster, who's always been awesome, and all of a sudden, a lot of our shows kind of like disappeared from the website.
Yeah, that was scary.
And I had learned my lesson from the debacle with franksworld.com when ClearDB nuked 13 years of posts.
That still makes me cringe every time you mention that.
It kind of, I've kind of turned it around. I did some, Bruce Lee, Tai Chi. I know these are not the right words, but I did some kind of like,
Right,
turn the energy around on it.
right.
And, I'll get to that in a second. But when you had said like what, we were messaging back and forth, and I was like,
hmm
I learned my lesson last time. We have backups on multiple, just as part of the process. Which some of it,
Yes.
I like to say all of it was intentional. Some of it was, and actually a lot of it was intentional, but most of it was accidental.
Yeah.
Because I realized all the
Right.
backups we had of the audio and stuff like that, it's between Gmail, between G Drive, OneDrive, and Dropbox. We have a lot
Yeah.
of redundancies, which I've always kind of
That's true.
pondered, like, should I pare that down? And then this happened, and I was like, maybe not. In fact, there was only one bit of data that I realized we weren't really backing up, and it was the text, the show notes and stuff like that. That's
Right.
which is an interesting, again, I think testing failure
Yeah.
is a good thing. Like, oh yeah, we probably should do something about that.
Sure. I did want to share with you
Mhm,
that I didn't think about this when we were in the thick of
mhm.
it, but most of the show notes are actually stored on my drive here.
Oh, all right then.
I do. So we do have backups of most of them, but kind of, it's kind of like the audio, not everything. But I create a new file every time. I've got a little template that I start
Oh,
with,
okay.
and it has like I do it all in HTML in Notepad. I know, mock me, it's fun, fine, but it works, and I miss very little by doing it that way. And it's very simple. If you've gone to our show notes, and if you don't, you'll see them right beneath this recording. There'll be some notes in there with some links and some text in there. That's it. I put the time in, and all of those. There's maybe 40 lines in there to start out with a timestamp of 00:00. Every now and then a show goes beyond an hour, so it's not hard to type 1: in front of that. And it's a target. I target it to a blank, which is a new tab, and that way you can keep listening and click on the links and visit something. Maybe you hear something like, oh, I want to go there right now. Well, you can keep listening to the show, pop over to a link and check it out. So we actually do have, I don't know how many, but we've got, I would venture more than half of them, and maybe even more than 3/4 of the
Cool.
show
I know
notes.
audio wise we're good because part of the automated
Yeah.
process is that stuff gets copied. If it's
Yeah.
one of these, it automatically goes into Dropbox. Where
Yep.
we're in the studio. If it's a Facebook Live, it's the Facebook stores that plus the other places where I have my pipeline go through. So
Yeah.
audio, I think we're at. Oh, yeah, I'm fairly confident we're at 95% and up.
Okay.
But text is good to know because that was like, oh,
Yeah.
like, huh. So the short of it is
Yep.
that there's a happy ending to this story. Is that podcast websites is an infinitely better service provider than ClearDB. So they had everything.
Absolutely.
By the time, like, I think I messaged you a 3-step plan, which because of language, can't
Yeah. We won't share all of the words you said.
can't share all of those steps, but the first one was just let's calm down and be patient. Let's see what they do with us.
Right. Don't panic.
Don't panic.
I remember
Yeah,
that.
and
We kind of went through that, and then we got a little levity going. I remember sharing. Do we have our towels after "Don't Panic"?
I'm going to be embarrassed to
Um,
say this. I don't get the reference.
you didn't get the towels joke.
Did not.
Frank. I'm hurt.
I'm sorry.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Oh,
Galaxy.
okay. I should have gotten it with
The
the
cover of the book.
Don't Panic.
Don't
Yeah,
panic.
yeah.
Right.
I for some reason
Sorry.
I had binge watched a couple episodes of South Park, and I thought you were making a Towley reference, and I'm like,
No, I don't watch that show. I've watched a few episodes of it, and I've laughed a little. And Frank, I don't have enough time to watch TV anymore.
Seriously, I don't either. I mean, like, aside from that, only thing I really watched recently was The Expanse.
Oh, and that's well
There
worth
it
it.
is.
I
Oh,
watched.
and The
So
Boys.
we recorded that.
And The Boys.
Watched it. Yeah, and there's a new Expanse coming out, right? Sci-Fi's been shooting it. I've been seeing tweets and
No,
stuff.
not
from
Sci-Fi. It's Jeff.
Oh, well, that's right.
Jeff
Amazon.
Bezos.
Sorry, it went to Amazon.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
Picked it up. Thank God. So,
Which is outstanding. I mean, I love all the streaming services that are out there. I love the content that they're all creating. I think I think the major studios and kind of the old guard got caught off guard, um, by this, and that's happened in so many industries now. It's not even news when it
Right.
happens.
It's assumed,
Yeah.
and Disney Plus just launched this week too. So I mean, I don't
Okay.
have that
Okay.
because I'm like you, I don't have a lot of time to watch stuff, and
Yeah.
it's like,
I'm the same way. You turned me on to Curiosity Stream.
yes, I do have that.
Over a year
Mhm.
ago, mine's coming up to get renewed. They're offering a thing where you can pay about half. It's a little more, I think, than half as much, and and you have to watch a 30-second commercial.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, I think it's a legitimate choice at this point. You know me, Frank. I'm an
Mhm.
engineer, right? So I'm paranoid.
Uh,
So I'm like, what comes
right,
next?
right. Well,
I'm thinking what's the second, third step from
Curiosity
here?
Stream is pretty awesome. We should see about an affiliate program with them, but there's actually a bunch of
And they put a lot on.
there's a lot of good data stuff
Oh,
on there. I think the Joy of Data is a good one. The Joy of Winning is a good one, where it's basically about game theory, essentially. And
yeah, and they put a bunch of new stuff out there. And you know what? I forgot we had it, and I hadn't watched it in forever. But I want the kids to
right.
watch it. That's really what I'm after. And they were advertising it, and one of them looked at me and said, "We should get that." And I'm like, "I think we have that."
That's funny.
And we do. So I sent the password out to the junior
Juniors.
engineers, and we'll see what they do with it.
That's
Yes.
cool. It's an interesting world where you can um, watch what you want to watch. Whether it's the science focused ones. I also have the
Absolutely.
Great Courses Plus streaming too.
Okay.
So I'll try to when
Nice.
I do work out, I'll try to watch something there and stuff like that.
Very good. Speaking of working out, you've done really
Thank
well
you very
lately. I'm
much.
proud
I
of
just
you.
crossed the 30 pounds loss, and
Congratulations, Frank.
hopefully
That
by
is
the time you
outstanding.
hear this, I will have recorded a data point talking about one of the tools that that my doctor gave me. Was basically, it's a continuous glucose monitor, and
Very IoT edges, right?
it is very IoT. It's very cutting edge because it's IoT. Not only is IoT, but it's healthcare and
That's
IoT.
pretty cool.
So there's definitely an interesting thing there. What I like about it, and hopefully I haven't recorded the data point yet. Full disclosure. So hopefully I will have mentioned that the cool thing about it is that I've been doing keto for maybe like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And I lost
Yep.
some weight. You
I
did too.
I gained some back. I'm not doing as well as you are.
Well, I kept gaining,
And I'm in there.
Like,
I'm there now. Yeah.
So finally, my wife got into keto as well. So she researched that there's a guy named Dr. Tro, who's based in Rockland County, New
Cool.
York. He has a podcast
Oh,
too.
neat.
I think it's the Low Carb MD podcast, and we went to him, right? Because you can go to him and he can be your primary care
That's
doctor.
awesome.
So they do a whole workup on you and stuff like that, but they give you this continuous glucose monitor, and basically it's NFC. So you just swipe your phone, you get your blood sugar in real time.
That's pretty cool.
Not only that, it takes an automated recording every 5 minutes.
Oh man, data.
So it's exactly. Here's the cool thing, the portal. You get access to a portal where you can actually see reports. Like the app on the phone has it too.
Oh man.
Like you can see the reports, and the cool thing is that you can actually get the raw data.
Wow.
From the sensors. And a teammate of mine, he also has diabetes. I don't have diabetes. That's one of the good things I've learned is I don't. Even though it kind of runs in my family, and my dad was my age when he got diagnosed. So the one thing I've learned is that I don't.
Right. That's good.
So But one of Dr. Tro's things, well, one, I found out that, fried foods are bad, right, for
Yeah.
keto, which I know it's kind of obvious in retrospect, but it was one of those things where it was kind of like Schrodinger's fried chicken or fried mozzarella sticks.
Right. Well, it's the breading, right? It's the
breading.
Yeah.
It's the breading, but I thought, oh, that's not enough. Well, apparently it is.
Yeah.
And the oil that they put it in also messes with your blood sugar.
See, that's interesting. And you've been able to eat something, and I don't mean to be, I don't get all down in your stuff, but you could eat something and then scan and see what your blood sugar did.
Exactly. So here's the thing. This is basically kind of like, go listen to his podcast to get the full skinny, right? But see what I did there? It's a pun.
I get it. Where's that sound effect, Frank? We need the sound effect.
Oh, yes. So basically, the whole idea is that when you get into ketosis, and what that really has to become, and don't do this, kids at home.
Yeah.
Without Dr. Med. I am actually under medical supervision. So
yeah, me too.
But basically what they want to monitor your sugar, one, to see if you're diabetic or pre-diabetic or insulin resistant. And then if you can start managing your blood sugar spikes to not have spikes, to kind of flatten out the curve, you can then do intermittent fasting, which is, it sounds absolutely crazy. So if you think I'm absolutely crazy, that's fine. You wouldn't be the first person on the planet.
Right. Well, see, now I've been diagnosed as type 2 diabetic. And I have a friend who's a doctor, a gentleman I went to church with, and we talked through, could we do intermittent fasting with this? Now, to spare everybody all the gory details, the short answer was yes, but I didn't have a continuous monitor like you have, Frank. So I had to run several tests during a day instead of just like one. And that's how we had to do the same sort of thing. You want to look at the line. And although mine was not flat because I'm type 2 diabetic, we were able to pick the right kind of intermittent fasting that would fit me and help me out. Yes. And occasionally you can stretch it, you can play. And as long as you realize the kind of the warning signs of a sugar crash, which is a real thing if you're diabetic or type 1 or type 2. But as long as you kind of feel those coming on and you've got stuff with you to take, that will help you. And this is going to sound bad, but sometimes the answer is like half a Snickers,
Yeah.
That'll get you out of the spiral. So
the flatter your sugar curves, the easier intermittent fasting is. So like somebody at work was the same guy at work. He's like, oh, I should try it. My doctor said try intermittent fasting. And then he got the same scanner I did after I talked it up.
Cool.
I was like, dude, with those sugar curves, you can do it, but you are not going to enjoy it.
Yeah. But go ahead, Frank.
No, go ahead.
Well, what I learned was you're right. The first few were traumatic, and really they only lasted a handful of hours. But just like everything else, the more you exercise it, your body adjusts. It's amazing the way the human body adjusts to this stuff. And I was stretching it out, at the time. And I travel a lot. And when I travel, it's hard to do it because I'm often called on to, I'm doing the air quotes, perform. Whenever I'm doing any kind of presentation, that's what it feels like to me. And to me,
not even that. Like if you're flying like across country.
Oh, yeah. And
the airplane peanuts aren't going to cut it. Obviously the cracker, and actually the first time, this is funny. So the first time I personally did an extended fast, I think I ended up doing 24 hours, was when I flew to Vegas for a Microsoft conference last summer.
Oh, wow.
And I was in Detroit and the Detroit airport, and like I was hungry, but I was trying to do keto.
Yeah.
And I saw some nuts there, and I was like, well, that's the closest thing I was able to get.
Right.
And then I was like, I saw that they were like $8 for like the bag, and I'm like, I know I can expense this, but just on principle, I refuse to spend $8 bleepity blank dollars on a bag of nuts. Like that's just obscene. So then I got on my flight, and then by the time I got to Vegas, I realized, crap, I haven't eaten in like 20 hours.
Right.
Like how much further can I take this? And then just the logistics of getting from point A to point A, B in Vegas, like Um, I was in front of like some slider burgers at the
Ooh,
24-hour mark, and I'm like, get like 5 or 6 of these and take the bread off. I'm good.
right? Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. That bread is a killer.
It
Uh,
is,
yeah.
but not to deviate too far down the keto path.
No,
But
no, good stuff.
it's just interesting because what's great about this continuous glucose monitor is it adds a certain amount of the one thing about weight loss in general is that there is no instantaneous feedback,
Right.
and that's it's hard for me because instant feedback is. I mean, I like it. Our culture, everything in our world now is kind of instantaneous gratification or feedback.
Sure.
Except this, right? So this lets me look like right away, like, oh, look what I ate and look what it did to my blood sugar,
Right.
you
Right.
know? And it's not so much the going up on the blood sugar that's the, well, you don't notice, you don't mind that as much, but it's the coming down.
Yes.
That is pretty
Yeah.
rough. And then basically what my doctor tells me is that, if you get a spike, if you spike and then it comes back down,
Right.
your brain is kind of set up to, okay, time to get more food.
Mm.
So for me, the cravings for anything, once I've gotten that kind of flatlined, it's not flat, but I mean it's
Yeah.
flatter. I don't crave that as much. Like at this point, as we record this, I am 18 hours into a fast,
Wow, Frank.
and 6 of those hours were kind of accidental. Like,
Yeah.
like
So
you just
what we
forget to eat. Like
I
it's
just want to right, right. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but I want to throw out the disclaimer here. Neither Frank nor I are trained medical people.
no,
We said this earlier. Do this under medical supervision. Go get yourself tested. And
yeah,
get the blood work up. There's a lot of books out there about weight loss and nutritional eating, and a lot of them mention going and doing the full blood workup and different things to look for that aren't standard testing. Get those things done. For goodness sakes, talk to a doctor, and don't just do this willy nilly based on, oh, I heard Frank and Andy talking about it and it was great.
right.
And the books that we've read all say the same thing. And that's exactly what I just shared with you. And Frank and I are following that advice. And we encourage you, if you're interested in this, to go talk to your doctor.
Yes, and I am not a doctor.
Yeah,
If I
not
were,
at
I
all.
wouldn't be driving a Honda.
I don't know. I like my Honda. I've got an old Odyssey van, and that's like my truck now, Frank.
Yeah, I would probably upgrade to an Acura. I don't know.
Well, there you go. Okay, I could
But
see.
anyway,
But one thing I want to share, one flavor of intermittent fasting is the one that I've had the most success with recently. And again, there's a lot to this, and part of it's psychological, a lot of it's psychosomatic, and you kind of have to figure out you, and having that monitor. I don't have a continuous glucose monitor. I want one, and I may try and get me one. But absent that, the thing that seems to work for me is doing the hours. Right, I won't eat breakfast until maybe 10:30, 11, in a.m., and then I will have dinner, maybe 8 hours later, lunch in the middle, maybe not. Maybe a couple of snacks. That's I don't know, a dozen almonds and a stick of cheese, or something like that. That again, the first day or so is like you're doing the balancing act. And I know if I had a continuous monitor, it'd be all spiky because I can feel it.
right.
But
Well,
after,
it's just nice. It adds a data-driven aspect to something that has not been data-driven in a sense where
I see what you did there.
yeah, there you go.
That's
Clever,
awesome.
right? I'm really hitting. I'm going to wear out that button today. But people are going to be listening to this thinking like, maybe it's better when you all do the data points. Like, maybe it's better already. But no, I mean, it's one of the things I did actually is I took my raw data, I scrubbed out the PII for myself, and
Yeah.
I fed it through the Azure ML type automated toolings.
No
And
way.
yeah, I
How'd
did.
that
Yeah,
work?
weird. Part of it is that it didn't. I did a predictive time series test, and it kind of.
Interesting.
I mean, it worked. It came up with something, but
Yeah.
I realized like I was so excited. Like I downloaded the CSV because you get the CSV from it, and
Yeah.
I first swipe it failed because the data wasn't clean enough. I was like, so I
Ah,
went back. I had to go back, and I forgot. Oh yeah, 80% of this work is,
data
cleansing.
cleansing, data
And
engineering. Yeah.
so, long story short, it did do a predictive window, but I mean, with blood sugar, it's not quite the same as say automobile maintenance. Like like I
Yeah.
could theoretically grab a Snickers bar from upstairs, and Snickers not sponsoring this episode. It's better than you think. Um, but
But they're tasty candy bars. We'll say that.
right, it's just whatever. And and then I could spike that. So I could. So that actually brings me up in another philosophical thing, which I would love to ponder on one day. Would be like if you have time series predictors, what
Yeah.
happens when you are aware that the prediction says X and you intentionally do Y?
Mm,
And this came up because we were talking about predictive policing and basically saying
okay.
a crime is supposed to happen at this intersection, or high probability. At some point, all right, there's a whole slew of ethics and questions related around predictive policing. Let's
Right.
put that on the shelf for now. Not saying they're not important, but that's not relevant to this philosophical point here. Is
Right.
that at some point will the criminals be onto the fact and alter their behavior,
Oh, wow,
right?
Frank.
Because
That's pretty deep.
well, it's kind of like
Yeah.
the is it it's hiding no Schrodinger, right? Like you kind of look at if you observe something, you kind of change it, right? Or if you measure it, you change it,
Right. Right.
right? Because I don't know, like would that happen? Because eventually somebody's going to try to steal a car, and the police are there
You're right.
predicting it. Are they gonna, are the criminals going to adapt and overcome? Historically, I would say they will, based on kind of,
Oh, yeah. I would
it's
think so.
always
Yeah.
cat and mouse type thing. I don't know,
Right.
just a deep thing. Like, well, then what comes beyond predictive policing? Because you
Well,
alter the
well,
model. I guess the cool kids.
there's a
Sorry, go ahead.
no. Go ahead.
No,
Go.
the cool kids call that model drift.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, some of Gladwell's latest book, "Talking to Strangers," he covers some of that. Some they applied some analytics to crime statistics, and and it proved wildly successful in in altering some policing tactics. I don't want to spoil the book for you, but they did have some like really good success in some neighborhoods. And one of the statistics that, if I remember correctly, it was like north of 90% of the crime was happening in like 3 blocks.
Oh, I lost you, Andy.
No, I'm muted because I'm coughing.
I was like, oh no.
Yeah, the past summit, I picked up the nerd head cold.
Oh,
So another interesting data point: landing twice with a head cold is absolutely no fun.
no.
Just to say, but they were wildly successful with the applying these statistics, and they would they found out, like I said, over 90% of the crime was happening in like a 3 square block area or something. So, and it was only happening at night. So they focused there. They do a lot of things differently than typical policing, and they eradicate a bunch of crime. The problem that Gladwell covers in this book, and he kind of starts with this one use case and he ends with it, is that what happens if you apply the same techniques in a lower crime area?
Interesting.
And what if some of the variables or metrics are different enough, different enough? And we all know the answer to that because we've worked with data. It doesn't take the right kind of outlier left in the pool can drastically impact the result. And that's what this is essentially, is he's doing that. Now, he violated one of Andy's rules of statistics, which says you can, and it's Andy's first rule of statistics, you can use statistics about anything to do with people except people. I know that sounds stupid, and I can go into it later, but It's
No, but
it really is.
ethical rule too. Like it, you know.
And really, it's about applying something to an individual versus applying to a group.
Right.
That's what I mean. You can't. I should say not people, person. You can't apply it to a
Right.
person. But yes, and it turns out that a lot of the mistakes I've seen, and with just data in general, very innocuous data that nobody got hurt, have been because we've read from a population and then tried to specifically apply it to a use case. Population statistics don't work that way. It's like entropy.
Right.
It will not ever work. So you may get lucky and it works once, but and it can be very skewing. So, but yeah, he talked about that an awful lot in the book about the ethics piece of that. And you and I have also had a conversation. I'm almost positive we talked about it in 2019 on a data point like this, where we said, what happens when the bad guys begin employing AI? And we were thinking mostly about hackers.
That was when we had Milena Rodben on the show.
Yes.
Who was the geopolitical risk consultant. It's an awesome show. Go back and listen to that. And she's doing a lot of other interesting stuff too.
She's amazing. Yeah. Follow her on Twitter.
Yeah, for real. She's up to some interesting stuff lately. And
yeah,
I think I saw that. If I recall, she was attending a lecture at Georgetown for something, and then basically the professor came to the same conclusions that she's going to publish in her paper.
Oh wow!
This was yesterday. She said tonight. So,
wow.
I don't know. Check her out on Twitter. Her stuff's always interesting.
Yeah. Yep. And that's
maybe not before you go to sleep though, because it is geopolitical risk stuff. So you may want.
Well, there's nothing else political happening in the world right now, Frank.
Oh yeah, that's right. But I'm glad you mentioned that book because I've seen it in my Audible feed. And if you're not hooked on audiobooks, I highly recommend getting an Audible subscription.
Yep.
Audible is a sponsor of the show. So if you go to thedatadrivenbook.com, or if you prefer to pronounce it, thedatadrivenbook.com.
We'll accept either.
We'll accept either pronunciation.
Or either.
Because one of us apparently has an accent and the other one doesn't. But the cool thing is you get a free book. And if you sign up for a subscription, and it's pretty cheap. I mean, it's not that expensive. We'll get like a little little tin goes in our little tin cup.
Yep.
And it helps support the show, and it helps support your growth as an individual, which is pretty awesome. I've binge audiobooks.
Yeah.
Like I'm at book number 45. I'm in the middle of book 45 for the year.
Wow. Now to be fair, Frank, to be fair, we have to tell people that you got me doing this. So today is really the 15th day of our new year.
Yes.
So
yes.
So 15th of November, 2019. Yeah.
Right. So basically 2016 was a horrible personal and professional year for me. It was like a country music song, like but the cat died. I got a concussion. It was just crazy. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to end this year like on November 1st. And we talked about this last year actually too.
Yep, we did.
A similar thing, which I think the universe took it as a sign of, all right, hotshot, let's see what you got. Because like right after that, I had the car accident and my wife was hospitalized, which is why we both had deaths in the family.
Yeah. It was a tough year.
It was I like to think of it as stress testing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was a tough year. So if you're wondering like, well, what happened to the regular cadence? Well, if we can't be in the studio, we try to bring the studio with us and bring you along with some of the interesting places we go.
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff we're privileged to get to is and breathe in a little bit of that rarefied air. We enjoy sharing that with you because not everyone can travel to pass or
right.
And don't feel bad if your paper was rejected to pass multiple years in a row. You are at least in good company.
Yeah.
You're yours truly himself. So it's just really cool, and that you were able to kind of share that experience with us. In fact, I'm going on a secret mission next week.
Dun dun.
Let's see, dramatic music. If I have that. No, that's more sad.
That
How about this?
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going on I say it's secret. The content, the agenda says, nothing here can be shared outside the company. I'm attending what the Machine Learning and Data Science Conference in Redmond,
Nice.
right at the mothership. It's for internal employees only. And basically, this was the conference I went to in 2016 that I had my Blues Brothers moment where, like, I have seen the light, and had really, had me going down a data science path, pretty hard and pretty fast,
Yep.
because it was clear that this was the future. Now, saying that in 2019, it's like, well, okay, Captain Obvious, but in 2016, I don't think it was quite so clear cut.
Yeah.
And I dropped all my I donated all my XAML books to Goodwill, and and that's about as polite a way I can say it. Got into the data space, more the advanced analytics stuff, and that's when I discovered I was reacquainted with math,
Right.
because my middle school and high school experience, and certainly the college experience with math, was not fun.
Right.
But when I kind of explored statistics again, I was like, if I had known this 20 years ago,
Right.
like, oh crap, I was shown it 20 years ago, but it didn't click.
Well,
So
too, it was context too, Frank. And you mentioned, not fun is, I think, a very nice way to describe the way of math is taught to a lot of young people these days. And I was very fortunate, even though I went to a community college, the calculus professor and the physics professor worked together. And
nice.
they recommended, the guidance people knew this, they recommended take these two courses together. And what it was is we were learning the math on Tuesday night. I was going to night school. We learned on Tuesday night, and then on Thursday night we were doing an experiment where we needed to use the equations that we'd learned 2 days earlier.
Nice.
If
That's the
you
way it
teach
should be
math
done.
in a vacuum, it's horrible. It's a memory test.
Well, you know what it is. If you teach math in a vacuum like that, you are only going to find a certain subset of the population that digs it and gets it.
Right.
And if you
That's
look around at
what it
our
is.
population, who are the people succeeding in math? Exactly those types of people,
Sure.
right? Math is more accessible than I think people realize.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's just interesting to see how that is. Fortunately, my youngin is I this month I think marks 15 years I've lived south of the Mason-Dixon,
And you said youngin.
and I said youngin, so you've been a good influence.
My work here is done.
Your work here, and I said y'all before too. I don't know if you caught that, but like it's taken me 15 years to be comfortable to say you all instead of you guys.
There you go.
Or yuz, you guys.
Use
And
yens.
no, that's a Pittsburgh thing. That's not
Pittsburgh. I learned
Yeah,
that in
yeah.
Pittsburgh last month. Yes.
Yeah. So it was I don't know where we're going. This is, I guess, part of the
Math
charm.
and one of your youngins.
Yes, one of my youngins. He's really good at math, and like
Awesome.
he's also good at reading too. So like he reads more books than I do, which is awesome.
Wow.
And like there's actually a book. I'm on the fence. I'm listening to the audiobook now. I'm on the fence about getting it for him because it may be a little too old for him. But it's called The Man Who Beat the Market.
Okay.
It's a story of basically the guy who made quants, the man who solved the market. That's the exact title.
Interesting. Okay.
By Gregory Zuckerman, and it's about the hedge fund. Now he's a billionaire. I think he's worth more than Musk, less than Buffett, less than Bezos and Gates. But I guess if you have to come in third on a list, that's not so shabby.
Not too bad. Yeah.
He was originally an academic in mathematics, and he kept pondering, like, how do you make money with math? How do you make money with math? And his whole life,
Right.
people told him, you're not going to make money with math. You should be a
Right.
doctor, right? Like then there's a whole thing in there, like where he fought with his parents about that,
Interesting.
and like they had doctor friends, like the family saying you need to be a doctor. And so anyway,
Yeah.
so long story short is it's a pretty interesting analysis of how this guy who was an academic created financial models to do this. Now, again, with 2019 eyes and ears, that sounds like
Yeah.
Captain Obvious. But this guy was doing
Right.
this in the late 80s, early 90s,
Wow.
and right now it's like a biography of him of sorts. And
Hmm.
I'm in the early 70s now, where he went to Berkeley, he taught at MIT, taught at Harvard, taught at you know it was interesting. It's interesting to see how that
Yeah.
goes. And but yeah, I'm digging that book so far.
Nice. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I think I screenshotted you. I'm like, oh my god, this is awesome.
Oh, okay. Well, see, that's you do this to me, and I don't listen as much as you do because the Farmville traffic is nothing compared to Northern Virginia, Southern Maryland.
Sure.
So you get more time, and that's cheating, Frank. I just want to put that out there.
I assure
No,
you,
it's
I
not.
don't enjoy it.
It's not. I'm glad you're able to enjoy it because my good, I know how frustrating it can be.
Yeah.
But that's I'm still I try and catch up, and I will listen to like the first couple chapters of some of them that you sent me and go, nah, not for me right now.
Mhm.
But I get almost all of the same books that you download, and it's a fascinating. Maybe we should share more. I think we have actually as we've done the show.
I
We've
had
shared like what we're listening to now.
I had a crazy idea.
What's a crazy idea, Frank? Let's hear it.
Well, the one that I think is most relevant here. I have many crazy ideas. Uh, but like a data-driven book club.
Ooh,
Because there's a lot of books out there, audiobooks
yeah,
especially, that talk about data. There's what was the other one about Unicorns Among Us? Unicorns Among Us.
yep, yep.
Uh,
Lars Nielsen. Yep.
Malcolm Gladwell and Outliers. Whoa.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a great book.
that was like, and it explains phenomena that we see. And it's like, well, they're outliers. Well, why are they outliers? Well, they
Yeah.
go into specific things about like why that is, and it's like, and that has the unintended consequence of that. Oh, this is pretty good. And then this one I'm reading
Mhm.
now, trying to look at my phone because I listen to so much, I kind of forget what I listen to.
Yeah,
So, but fortunately, the app has pretty good data on
it
it.
has a good memory. Yes,
It
it
actually
does.
has really good analytics on it too. It tells you how many days you've listened and how many.
Oh, that's neat. Okay.
The Age of Living Machines. That was a fascinating one.
Yeah.
By Susan Hockfield.
Yeah.
Basically, it's kind of biotechnology and how studying it actually gets into the whole thing cross-disciplinary
Interesting.
stuff where people. I'm not going to do her it justice, but the short of it is that because we teach these subjects in silos, there's a lot of cross-pollination ideas that just never happen. So
Right.
one of the things MIT has is, and she gets into it because she is or was president of MIT, and one of the things they intentionally do is they have you have your home department, then you can be like a part of a guest department. So the biology
Mhm.
people can hang out with the chemistry people, and the chemistry people can hang out with the the computer science people and that sort of thing,
Right.
and stuff
That's a
like that.
great idea.
Which is awesome because that's how a lot of ideas go, and there is some value to quote unquote swimming in your own lane,
Hmm.
but and one of these days I will share the story behind that one. But if you're on a
Maybe.
cross-functional team and you hear that the focus for the future is going to be swimming in your own lane,
Yeah,
uh,
those two things don't go together.
no, I remember I heard it once and then I'm like, just a phrase. And at the
Right.
second and third time term I heard it, my spidey senses went up,
Yeah.
and I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
It turns out it was an uh-oh indeed.
Yeah.
Um, but
Not your fault.
no, no,
Not your
no.
fault.
But first day through your mouth.
I like the data driven book club.
Yeah, let us know in the comments what you think and stuff like that. Also, while we're getting interactive, obviously sign up for the Facebook Live. I will be doing a lot of data points next week. The nature of the conference I may have to be a bit more thoughtful about where I
Mm,
film and what I film and whom I
yeah.
film. Um,
Yes.
but I hope I do half as good a job as Andy did last week. And
Oh, stop! You nail it. You knock it out of the park. I cannot snatch the pebble from your hand.
well, thank you. Also, if you can rate and review our show on iTunes/Apple Podcast/whatever they're calling it now, um, and that would be great because that helps the search. Yeah, that helps their search engine kind of optimize us.
Right.
We're at like 40 something reviews, and our rating is 4.9 or something
Nice.
like that. So
And are we on Spotify?
yes, we are on Spotify. I don't have that
Yeah.
link handy, but
We'll put
yes,
it in
we
the
are.
note.
We are on Spotify, and we're on all the major platforms that I'm aware of. I don't know what I don't know. Uh,
Yeah.
as part of the
Yeah.
migration that podcast websites do, they have this whole new marketing dashboard and stuff like that. So
Which is really cool, I think. I'll be interested to see how that does in the next little bit. We are, if I'm not mistaken, approaching another major milestone in downloads.
yes, so we are just above 95,000 downloads, and
Wow.
just depending on when this is, we may or may not have crossed it yet, but doing analytics and predictive analytics because that's what we do.
That's what we do.
It probably within 90 days on the outside. I always try to, when it comes to numbers like that, I try to not get my hopes up and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this should be episode 222, assuming, of
Wow.
course, future Frank does record the data point about the continuous glucose monitor.
Well, it'll be 221 or
221 or
222, but
222.
that's a lot of shows,
Wasn't that a
Frank.
line? Wasn't
And
that a line in Mr. Mom?
I think so.
120 or 220. Yeah, that's what it was. It was talking about electricity. Yeah.
Electricity.
And
Yes. I remember
we're
that.
like almost an hour into this, and we needed to get a movie reference in.
Perfect.
Spidey Sense doesn't
Perfect.
count because it's kind of a cartoon/comic.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you. But Mr. Mom's definitely a
Mr.
movie.
Mom. Yeah, there we go. But
And Frank, I tried to mute while I was coughing and sniffling and stuff like that. If I missed any, and if our listeners heard them, I want to apologize to you. I didn't mute every
your
single one,
ears
I'm
may
sure.
burn when I'm editing because I'll be trying to figure out why your line went dead. But
Yeah, well, and that's fine. It's fine. I did mute quite a bit in here, but Frank, I'm healthy as a horse. Other than diabetes and stuff, but I have not had like colds. I was trying to think, when's the last time I had a cold? And it's got to be like 2018 or something. I mean, it was a long time ago. So anyway, now I've had like 3 in a row. Emma brought something home and I caught it. I went out to the past summit and coming back, I was all stuffed up, congested. And then I had something else happen. I'm not going to talk about it, but it wasn't pleasant. So yeah,
I think
what
whatever
in the
people will
world?
imagine will probably be worse than what it actually was.
Probably be
But
worse. Yes.
the other thing I was going to say was I totally forgot. I'm sorry.
Oh no. But I love this idea of the data-driven book club. We can put links out to books. We can maybe put a page on the site,
Yeah, that's
and
actually a good idea. The site and or Facebook,
yeah,
because Facebook would have the
yeah,
automated.
and we can kind of book clubs that people get together and they talk about it. So we could do that. That gives us a whole content show right there every month
There
where
you
we
go.
could just talk about the book.
That'd be cool. And
Yeah.
if people feel particularly strongly, we can have them on the show and interview them. That'd be pretty cool.
That's a great idea.
Awesome.
I'm digging it. You're smart. You're good at this. You should have your own
I should have a blog too.
podcast. That's funny.
So actually, so far every month this year, except for November and December, I've had more than 100 posts on my blog.
You have been
I've
rocking
been
it,
rocking
man.
it, and that was a goal I set last year, and so far I've hit it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, it's been awesome, Frank, and your traffic is like crazy.
yeah, it's funny because I was a regular blogger before, but like when I really got regular with consistent number of posts per day and stuff like that, and maybe one of these days I'll do a webcast or whatever. I can kind of show how I keep myself to that schedule. You've
Sure.
seen screenshots of the spreadsheet, right?
I have, and it's astounding. You're data
I am
driven,
data
Frank.
driven. Whoops, where's the problem?
Very cool.
Data driven
Well,
even on Frank's World. So with that, I'm done.
that's funny. Okay, me too. We can let the nice British lady take us
That
out.
sounds awesome. And everyone, have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Data Driven. Don't just listen, become a data driver by going to datadriven.tv to sign up to join the community, access to special events, tips and tricks, and more. Sign up today at datadriven.tv.